The following is a Papi Chulo Radio original program. The views and opinions expressed in the commentaries and/or interviews in the following program are solely those of the individuals and are not views of Papi Chulo Radio, its parent, affiliate, or subsidiary companies.
Welcome to the Silver Bells Murders, the unofficial American Gothic internet radio show exclusively on PapiChuloRadio.com. Papi Chulo Radio, pop culture on demand. Today is Friday, August 19th, 2016, and I am your host, Samantha Hoover. During tonight's broadcast, we're going to recap, review, and dissect the latest episode of CBS's American Gothic. Please welcome my co-host, Papi Chulo.
Hey listeners, and SBK if you're out there, we're still looking for you, but I think we've got some new clues. Or maybe not. Who knows?
We will see in just a few minutes. Let's jump into our recap of Season 1, Episode 9, titled The Oxbow, and aired August 17th, 2016. Here's the official synopsis of the episode. Key Hawthorne family secrets are revealed when Garrett is forced to reflect on his 14 years of solitude in the woods. Also, Allison turns the screws on a local reporter with shocking results. Before we jump into the initial reactions, let's check in with this week's ratings. So American Gothic trended down to a 0.4 demographic, or 2.37 million viewers. So Papi, what was your initial reaction to this episode?
I liked the episode. I'm not going to lie. I thought it was going to be a little bit boring when I read the synopsis of what it was going to be about, because I was like, how much of him being out in the woods alone was going to be interesting, but it turned out to be really fascinating, and I loved getting to know what Garrett was doing throughout all those years out in the woods with what we thought was just himself. So I thought it was a really, really compelling story, and it sort of matched a bit his isolation behind bars, which I thought was fascinating. And all the other little nuggets that we got from the outside world was really interesting as well. I thought it was a really good episode.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. For me, this episode was somewhat shocking. Like you said, we've finally seen Garrett's past. We know exactly what happened there. It's not a question mark. And it wasn't exactly what I expected, because they portray him as the killer. He's the one. He's scruffy. He's kind of mysterious. He should be the killer. But for me, I can say without spoiling a single thing, I am so happy I was right about Garrett all along. But before we get into a thorough recap, here are a few reminders on how you can interact with the show via social media. Follow the show on Tumblr, thesilverbellsmurders.tumblr.com. Follow the station on social media. We are on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Tumblr at Papi Chulo Radio. Help support Papi Chulo Radio financially by visiting gofundme.com/Papi Chulo Radio. Do you have any questions, suggestions, comments, or concerns? Email us via contact@papichuloradio.com. Are you interested in joining the Papi Chulo Radio team as an on-air personality or blog contributor? Email talent@papichuloradio.com. Binge listen to your favorite Papi Chulo Radio programs by visiting papichuloradio.com/archives. And search for the Silver Bells Murders through iTunes and hit the subscribe button. New episodes are available to download on Fridays throughout the summer. Okay, so before we get into the actual episode, we open with a recap of everything we've been shown so far. So we just see a quick recap of what has gone on, the key points anyways. We then see Brady, and he's speaking to someone. That someone is Garrett, and he's in jail. They're in an interrogation room. Brady doesn't believe Garrett killed anyone and that it was his dad that did this. And he says to come clean to his role in the SBK killings. They have Garrett's knife, and he knows it was the one at the site of the first killing. We then see a flashback from 2002, and Garrett is holding said knife in his hands. He seems to be extremely dirty with blood or dirt, we don't know. And then Madeline asks him what he had just done. Switching back to the present day, Madeline is visiting Garrett and asks how he is making out in jail. She asks if the police questioned him. Garrett says yes, and that he answered very little. Madeline says to not say anything ever. She hired a criminal defense lawyer to help him, but Garrett says to stop. It's over and this was inevitable. They just postponed the outcome for 14 years. Madeline remembers Mitch giving Garrett the knife and presses to ask if he remembers that too. He says he remembers a lot. Some memories surface more readily than others. We then see another 2002 flashback where Garrett is hovering over Tessa's bed. She then grabs a picture of her and Garrett and looks at it. So the criminal defense lawyer reassures Garrett that she will save his butt, that he's an innocent bystander with an unlucky genealogy. Garrett hesitates to believe her. She brushes off his attitude as a shock to the system and that he didn't expect to go to jail. But Garrett says he actually did expect that. So, what did you think of this as the opening scene, Poppy? Like, this was kind of multifaceted in a way. We saw flashbacks and we saw how Garrett's doing in jail. What did you think of that initially?
The flashbacks were interesting. It was a little suspicious in the beginning, I'm not going to lie. Seeing a young Garrett, dirty, bloodied up with the knife, and the knife has blood on it. And Madeline looked very surprised, which was interesting because I know that one of the sort of like recurring theories is that Madeline is somehow involved in all of this, and she looked like really shocked. So I thought that was interesting. And then when he was hovering over Tessa and he left her something, like that really didn't surprise me because, I mean, we've always kind of known that they have and had like a really tight, really close relationship. So I thought that was appropriate. And as far as everything that was going on in the jail, like Madeline was interesting because she was still like, don't say anything, whatever, what keep it to yourself. But she was also trying to help him out. She was like, let's pin it on your father, say that the knife was his and that he gave it to you so that you were in possession of something that SBK gave you, and so that you are no longer implemented in being his accomplice. So I thought that was interesting that she was still trying to save him, even though they kind of do have a very tense relationship together. She was still trying to protect her child.
Yeah, I'll have to say this is the first episode where Madeline looked innocent to me, which was kind of weird because I've been saying since week 1 that she's it, and then this happens and I was like, well, she looks genuinely surprised at this. So I was like, what am I supposed to think? And we'll have to see what goes on and if she really is guilty later on. So moving forward, the lawyer tells Garrett to sit tight and keep quiet. She asks Garrett if he's sleeping okay, to which he says, yes, I can sleep anywhere. We then see a 2003 flashback of Garrett waking up in a house. He gets up and opens the curtain. He quickly runs out the door with his stuff before the family arrives back home, which, we see that it's not his family. Garrett then travels out to the forest where he sets up camp, and he tries to bring into someone's cabin. An arrow pierces the cabin right next to him, and the angry owner accuses him of theft. Garrett pleads with him that he just needs a warm place to stay. He admits he's been couch surfing, unbeknownst to the other cabin owners. This cabin owner demands he go back to Boston. So I think he's in Maine, I think. That's where it was said somewhere.
Yeah, Maine.
Yeah. So he's a little bit farther from home. But Garrett refuses to go back. He couldn't take the people. The man throws him his canteen before Garrett walks away. So back to the present day, we see Cam calling Garrett at jail from rehab. He seems to be doing well there. Garrett then apologizes to Cam, who forgives him absolutely. Garrett regrets not being there for more of Cam's life, and Cam then says he should be the one apologizing. Garrett then says he's so proud of Cam for staying true to himself through all of this. Garrett claims he's getting it all out before he heads to the electric chair. We then see another flashback. Garrett is running through the forest trying to catch his next meal. The man from the cabin, whose name is Jenkins, catches his kill and invites him to eat with him. He offers to show him how to actually catch and kill a rabbit, and suggests that he will only be there once every year, so maybe he'll let Garrett stay there the rest of the year. Jenkins offers to show Garrett his other cabin tomorrow. So the next day, Jenkins opens his other cabin and they clean it up a bit. Garrett begins planting, and then they go rabbit hunting properly with traps. We jump to 2008 now, where Garrett is rabbit hunting on his own. Jenkins praises him for his progress, but Garrett still asks him to cook it himself. He asks if Garrett hunted with his dad before, to which he said, a few times. Okay, so we've been given insight into Garrett's past through several flashbacks within the first 5 to 10 minutes of the show. Poppy, how do you feel about what we've learned about him so far?
I'm not gonna lie, when he was like, my dad has taken me hunting a few times, I thought that was so sketch. Just because of SBK and all that kind of stuff, I was like, hunting what? I thought that was really interesting. And I like the flashbacks. I like that he had somebody there that was kind of teaching him the way, because if you really think about it, and it's something I think maybe none of us thought of when we initially were presented with the fact that he was gone for all that time and living in the woods, how does this preppy rich boy survive in the forest by himself when he doesn't know anything, to be quite honest? And as we saw, he didn't know how to catch a rabbit. So I like that he had kind of his own forest guide, for lack of a better word, and he had someone there supporting him and at least teaching him how to be able to survive out there by himself.
Yeah, I agree, because I don't know what Mitch taught him. I assume it's all of the wrong things, and that's why he left. But to have someone that's genuinely interested in mentoring him, that was so nice to see. And I'm really happy that someone was actually there for him. And he wasn't just alone, because that's what I thought this whole time. Oh, he's surviving alone. How did he get there? How is he doing? I don't know how he gets those skills, but he got it from someone else.
That's true.
Alright, so going along, we see that Allison is at jail, and she actually doesn't buy that Garrett is the accomplice, which I found interesting because, they didn't have the best relationship in the beginning, and then now she's like, well, I don't think you did that. So Garrett asks about her thinking he was SPK before, and then she just says it's water under the bridge, so I guess she's changed her opinion of him. She says she's on Garrett's side and asks if there's anything she can do. He says he'll let her know. Garrett grabs her hand and says he's okay. Allison says she has to go. She's meeting with an employee. So we then see Jen, the reporter, doing yoga and meditating, and she's like, oh, everything's going to be okay. I am wonderful. I am amazing. Blah, blah, blah. Until Allison just shows up unexpectedly. Apparently, her door was broken and she could just walk in. So Allison asks her to get something on Mayor Conley for the election so that she can look better, because she's frankly not doing too well.
Yeah.
She wants Jen to take him down herself. She reminds her about the bug that she planted when she was sleeping with her husband, and uses that as blackmail if Jen doesn't comply. You're a journalist, you're transparent, this will look better coming from you than it would coming from me. She doesn't care how, she just wants her to get info, or she'll be meditating in jail. We are back in 2008 once again. Jenkins asks why Garrett is attached to his knife, because he's kind of playing with it at the dinner table, and he's like, well, is there some kind of sentimental value with that? And Garrett kind of agrees with that, which I thought kind of, a little suspicious. And they both say their families are dead, so I believe Jenkins, his family's dead, because he has this memory of his niece. He's like, oh, she used to play oboe, she was a great player, and he kind of just digresses because she's dead. But Garrett says that his family is dead, so he doesn't have to talk about this crazy family, Brady Bunch sickos living back in Boston, so that he's just like, oh yeah, me too, we can relate to that. He does mention Tessa, though, which I was not surprised by.
Yeah, I thought that was really nice.
Yeah, okay, they're all dead to me but Tessa. Literally. And then Jenkins asks if Garrett misses Tessa. So he says they came out to the woods camping together before, which I don't know if I believe, but he said it, so it's been said. And then Jenkins says that he wants to make a toast to family, the ones we like anyways. So, back in the present day, Tessa seems to think Garrett's knife was planted in his cabin and discusses this with Brady. And Brady's he's the cop, he's the detective, so he's just trying to look at this objectively. He's like, you know what, you need to stop. He says he understands what she's going through, but says she must face the reality of what's happening. Tessa is in her own little world. She's like, Garrett is my big brother. He would never do that. He would never do that. And she's just been there for so long. And Brady's like, we need to look at this. He's in jail. He probably killed someone. There's a knife there. And then Brady says to ask him point blank if he was involved. Just go to jail, ask Garrett, did you kill someone? Were you involved? And then Tessa blames him for asking her to use herself against Garrett. Brady makes a good point, though. Doesn't she need to know the truth for herself? So, Garrett and that knife. What do you think that sentimental value could be? Why is he so attached to that thing? I was like, oh boy. I don't want to say what I'm thinking because I know this is contradicting to how I feel about Garrett, but he killed somebody and I didn't like that. That didn't sit right with me. But what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, good grief. I mean, we were given all these like little nuggets from like his relationships with his various siblings. Like at the start of this episode, like we had him and Cam, and then we have him and Allison, and then also him and Madeline. Like it was interesting to see how he was reacting to all of them as they were visiting him. Well, although Cam, it was done over the phone because obviously he's stuck in his own type of jail, but much more comfortable because it's rehab.
Yeah, it was really interesting to see that relationship in that way. And
then all of a sudden, like throwing Brady into the mix, and basically Brady telling Tessa, like, you need to go, like, you should go for yourself. But obviously it's going to help him, but I would say he's probably 50-50 at that moment. Like 50% it's him being the doting husband, and 50% is him being the cop that's trying to find SBK's accomplice. But I genuinely think that he really was doing it for her, because she was all about, like, it can't be Garrett, and she was living kind of like in living with rose-colored glasses. I think that's the phrase. Like everything is going to be fine. Like there's no way it can be him, and this, that, or the other. But like Brady really wanted to like take those rose-colored glasses off of her face and be like, you need to get into the real world, because these are like major accusations, and this is your brother, and you need to find the truth out for yourself.
The truth is out there. She just needs to go get it.
Yes.
All right, so this is very flashback heavy. I liked this. I liked how they told this episode. So when we move forward, we go into another flashback. So we see Garrett in the woods. It's 2009 now. He peers across the way to a big house. Maybe it was the Hawthorne household? Again, a year later in 2010, he peers at the house from the woods, and the family is home, and we do see it's his family.
Yes, I think that's their summer cabin.
Yeah, I remember them mentioning that. So they're all at the cabin. We see younger versions of Tessa, Brady, Cam, Madeline, and Jack. Garrett is watching them and listening, which this is kind of creepy. Like, they think he's like, I don't know what they think, but he's gone. Allison is pregnant with the twins. And Tessa is taunting Cam about how Sophie came into his life. So
with a horrible wig.
Yeah.
Sorry, Tessa girl, but that was a really bad wig.
The rest of the family goes inside after a minute, and Tessa is outside alone. Later that night, Garrett sneaks into Tessa's room while she sleeps and sneaks a note into her bag. We then see Garrett on the phone with her, and she's shocked to find the note. It was his phone number. She's upset that Garrett didn't come in to see her and say hi, but is excited that she now has a way to talk to him after all these years. They say they miss each other, and she asks him why he left and when he's coming back, and all these other questions that a younger sister is expected to ask, and she was very frantic about it. Garrett says he needs to go, but he promises to talk to her soon. And then she's almost crying, and she says she loves him, and he's like, he seems super sad, and he just quickly says, you too, and hangs up. So back in the present day, we see Tessa visiting Garrett at jail. Garrett asks how she is, and asks about the baby's heartbeat. She says everything is good. And then Tessa asks how he's holding up, and Garrett says he's fine. She then asks about the knife and how it wound up in the cabin, so it took like a sharp turn there. She doesn't think he's a killer, but asks him to say that he didn't kill anyone just for her peace of mind. Please just tell me you didn't. However, Garrett can't exactly tell her that. And that's all he says, and she is clearly shocked, in tears, by this statement, and she walks out of the interrogation room. So 2 questions. First, what was your reaction to Garrett hovering around his family's home? Did you think that was creepy, or was it kind of like how he is now that he's in the woods? That's just kind of his thing now. He has to be on the outside looking in. Second, how did you feel about Tessa's revelation, like about Garrett now that he's not the safest person in the world to her? Like, what did you feel about that as well?
I thought him checking in on his family was endearing. It kind of gave me the sense that he missed them a bit. He missed the interactions with his family members, and I thought it was sweet. Like, you could tell as we saw him like going back and like not seeing anyone, that he was a little bit disappointed. And then all of a sudden, once they're there, you could see that he's a bit happier to see them, even though he just mentioned Tessa and he has obviously that really great connection with Tessa. It really looked like he was happy to see all of them and to at least get to know what they've been up to throughout all these years. And he basically got the chance to hear everything that they've been into since he departed, since he personally decided to leave and seclude himself from the world. So that was like really nice. As far as Tessa and her reaction to what he said, I mean, obviously her world kind of crumbled because she was like really all Pollyanna about it. She was like, he's innocent, this is all a misunderstanding, everything's going to be fine, rosy, hunky-dory, all this kind of stuff. And then he sort of confirms to her that he has killed someone, at least, because that was the question. And he didn't answer it, and he was looking hella suspicious, hella sketchy when he didn't answer it. So, I mean, I get her reaction, and she seems to be a very emotional person already. So her, like, really emotional, visceral reaction to his non-answer was appropriate, and I'm sure it was what he wanted her to think at that time. Because, as we've noticed, he has been saying, like, hella suspicious things to everybody, or looking hella suspicious to anybody that's there in the prison, from Brady to the lawyer. I mean, the lawyer got to the point where she was like, don't tell me anything, I don't want to know anything, don't talk to anybody because you're looking hella suspicious. So now he did it also to Tessa.
I was really shocked that he was so honest with her about that, because everything else under the sun is fine, but when you kill someone, it's like that's a whole another box that you don't want to open. But like, he really loves her, and I really saw that, and he didn't want to keep anything from her, and he thought she could handle it. But also, being pregnant, the emotions are not very held together, so that I'm sure that made it worse. But I think her reaction was appropriate, and I actually do agree. Like, I was also shocked to know that maybe he was missing his family, because it just seemed like he had such a vendetta against his father, and the family didn't get along with him after all these years. I thought it was just he was gone for 14 years straight, but he kept coming back, which was really sweet for me to notice. So going along, we see Brady and Tessa in their kitchen. She says he's right and that she's been in denial. She brings Brady the picture Garrett left her when she was a child. She thinks it may jog someone's memory and that she will do anything to help. Brady brings this picture to Garrett in jail and tells him how easy it would be for someone to recognize him in the neighborhood. Garrett says he thinks Brady is good for Tessa and he's happy about them and their baby, which kind of confuses Brady, and he's so angry at this point for Tessa. He says, look, you have just lost your last true supporter in this world. And Brady says, you know what, whatever plea deal that you may be offered, you take it, because I'm done. Somewhere along the line, Garrett slipped up. There is no way, Brady thinks in his mind, that he could have done everything or anything, whatever he had done, without being seen. So we're back in 2010, and Jenkins asks if anyone saw him, so that's kind of creepy coming off that sentence. Which I actually will applaud, because every time a flashback comes, it kind of goes off of what Garrett says or what someone else says, and it kind of ties in with the flashback, which I thought was really
I noticed that too.
Wonderfully done. Yeah. Shout out to the writers. That was amazing. So Jenkins asks if anyone saw him. No context there, so that sounds awful. He gives an account of his family and where they're all at in their lives. Tessa and Brady, Allison being pregnant, and Cam married with a child. Garrett muses, and he thought, as a child, maybe he was going to be the first one getting married, because I assume he's the oldest brother, the oldest child, and he thought maybe he would have been the first to be married and have kids, but that's just not in the cards anymore for him. Jenkins says nothing is impossible, and then he begins to have a coughing fit. Garrett asks him if he's okay, and then Jenkins says, oh, it's just congestive heart failure. Oh yeah, that's nothing. It's getting worse though. He says it'll probably kill him one of these days, which he doesn't seem too upset about. So thinking back on how little we knew about Garrett and how easy it was for us to make assumptions that he was the bad guy, he was the killer. And comparing that to now, where we know so much, has your opinion of Garrett changed in any way?
Yeah, I mean, he initially started off being like the suspect, I think. We all found him to be creepy, and I mean, he looked like the killer. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Like, the way he came in as like the mountain man, and him being gone for so long after, like the final kill, and there not being any other killers since then, or any other kills since he left, then I was like, okay, this is hella suspicious. Then, I think we all sort of softened on him because of his character and his relationships and his actions, even though they being the writers kind of like made him do a lot of sketchy things. It was kind of too obvious. And then in the previous episode, we had him basically looking hella suspicious. And it was like, could it be him? Like, is this what they're going to be doing? And then this episode, even though they were making him look really suspicious in the present and even a little suspicious in the past, like, everything was just sort of like clicking too well for me, where I was like, no, this can't be like real, in the sense that, them being the writers, like, trying to make him seem like he was the accomplice, they're like working really too hard at making that case. So I was like, this can't be real.
I totally agree with you, and I think that's what I've been saying this whole time. It's like, he looks the part, he can't be the part. It's the one that's going to look the most innocent, or maybe it's not. Maybe it'll be a combination of innocent and guilty at the same time. So like, the theory of maybe Tessa being a killer because she's kind of both at the same time, or even the accomplice, because they just want to confuse you to the point where you just keep changing your mind. But Garrett always had to look like the creepiest one, and he always had to look like the one that just doesn't have any good intentions. But we've seen time and time again, even right now, especially right now with the flashbacks, that he's been proving that wrong. Like, he donated $200,000 of his mother's money to the hospital, and he got that $4,000 for Cam, and he's always just been so doting to Jack, even though Jack needs a lot more than a mentor at this point, which Jess would agree if she was here. But yeah, my opinion of Garrett, like I said, it's been fluid, but I've never thought of him negatively. So then we go forward and we meet up with Allison and Jen, who says she's been following Conley, and she spotted him with Detective Cutter in a car, which shocked me. Oh my gosh. Like, when I saw that, I was like, excuse you? Like, Brady wouldn't be caught dead doing that or anything. She has pictures to prove this. If she finds anything more, Jen promises to report on this that same day at her 5 o'clock report. So then Jack visits Garrett in jail, which was what I was waiting for. And he's brought him a book, Escape from Alcatraz. He thought it would be very helpful for
I know, cute. Right?
I thought that was cute, even though we know how Jack is.
Yeah, even though he's twisted, I thought this whole scene was kind of adorable.
Yeah, which lately they've been showing the more child side of Jack, minus last episode. But
yeah, and in my mind I was thinking, you know what? Maybe he wouldn't kill some of his family. He'll kill, like, the little girls, but maybe he won't kill the adults whenever he turns full psychopath.
And maybe he won't kill that little girl that he met at camp, because they have the exact same mindset.
Oh yes, they're gonna get married.
Anyways, he also brought him a drawing of the Black Plague with some facts about how it killed 25 million people, but it didn't go to jail. What if Garrett just killed one? Why is he in jail? Trying to rationalize why he's there.
Yeah.
And then Jack says he saw his girlfriend at the hospital. Christina was there, not as
the one
that
nurse. Stabbed you.
Yeah, the one that stabbed you. Like, not that, like, that other girl that stabbed you, but this one. And then he says, well, she wasn't working. She was a patient. She was getting an ultrasound. And Garrett looked like, I have never seen him look speechless. This was the first time, and it kind of scared me. We see him calling Christina, and he tells her what Jack just told him. And Garrett is wondering the obvious question, like, is this baby mine? She then abruptly hangs up, and he's just, like, pissed. And then Garrett's told to wrap it up by the prison guard. So he pleads with the guy, for a few more minutes, I have to call my wife. And then he calls Darcy the defense lawyer. He has a reason to get out of there because Garrett is going to be a father. So, in what seems to be the biggest twist so far in the series, what are your thoughts on Garrett finding out he's going to be a father? How did you feel about that?
Yeah, I was like, why? Because this is just so complicated. Like, what do you tell your child? Hey, son or daughter, you know how I met your mommy? Well, it turns out many, many moons ago, someone in my family killed her father, and then I went away for some time, but when I came back, I started stalking her, and then I cut my hand, and then I was in the hospital, and then she stitched me up, and then I asked her out, and then we were about to do it in an alley, but I was like, no, and then, like, we made out at her place and we started taking off our clothes, but I grabbed onto the bell, but then I banged her, and then we went out into the woods, and that's when she found out that I could have been the person that killed her father. And then she stabbed me, and then I tried to get her back, and then in the hospital she was like, tell me the truth, and then she figured out that I was lying, and so she left, and now you're in this world. Yay! You want a piece of apple pie?
I think this is what that status on Facebook was created for. It's complicated.
Yes.
No one can even make up the situation. This is their lives. And now, like, they're going to have a kid into this. And it's kind of like, we have all been saying that we don't want another little Jack running around. And this child will be brought up in the same or similar circumstances as Jack was. That makes me sad because don't these kids deserve more than that? It's just, I don't know. Going along now, we then see Darcy at the police department. She's looking through files and evidence from the SBK case, or cases from the past, and then this current case. And Dana refuses to admit ever making a mistake. So then Darcy asks her about a cufflink from David Morales' death, and the lawyer says they weren't able to retrieve it. She holds up a bag, it's empty, and says, oh, you guys didn't get this. So in her mind, this is a clear claim that the police aren't tracking and keeping evidence correctly. So then Allison is back with Garrett at the jail, and he asks for help. And she says she'll speak to the DA about this. And then the news cuts in. There's a new development in the SBK case. Allison knows things are about to get a lot better. She's very sure about this. So we've seen about her blackmailing Jen, but Garrett has no idea. And then Garrett tells Allison to tell Tessa he would really love a chance. He needs a chance to explain to her. And she nods, and then they part ways. So now it's 2015. In the flashbacks, Garrett finds Jenkins on the floor of the cabin, heaving and coughing heavily. So it's the congestive heart failure. It's kind of taken a turn for the worse. Garrett asks where his medicine is, and Jenkins says it's too late for that. He refuses to go to the hospital. Jenkins is like grabbing onto his shirt at this point. He's crying and he's screaming for him to help him die. And Garrett keeps saying, well, I can't. So then Garrett just like sits there on the floor and he's like, what am I going to do? So then Garrett decides to grab a pillow and puts it over Jenkins' mouth, and he smothers him to death. Garrett's fighting this the whole time, too. Like, as Garrett realizes he's dead, like, he stifles tears in his eyes, which I didn't expect, to be honest, because from what we've seen, like, I know he wouldn't want to kill somebody, but then I saw him cry, and I just totally broke that wall down for me. And then I heard the cabin door squeak, so I thought someone had caught him, but apparently not. So what we see in the next scene is that the police arrive, and I think they take Jenkins' body, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. And then once the sheriff's car drives away, Garrett just watches them leave, and he's just like, I can't believe it just happened. So then we see it's 2016. There's a knock on Garrett's cabin. A man comes to his cabin and says Tessa called for him, that his dad had a heart attack. So that's where Garrett entered into the timeline. Now we've seen the other side. I have two questions. First, do you think Garrett's defense lawyer will actually state a good case? And second, seeing how Garrett reacted to killing Jenkins, do you think he was ever involved with SBK despite what evidence and people have been saying?
I think yes, she's going to find a way to get him off. That technicality issue, there are real life situations where, you can get someone out of jail on a very small technicality. So yes, I do believe he will be getting out of jail very soon. As far as him and the Mercy killing, I feel like that was his first time killing, like a human. I don't believe he had ever killed anyone before. That's why he was really, really hesitant about doing it. I mean, this guy had become a mentor to Garrett, and we know he was out there for 14 years, so he's known him for at least a decade. So he's become basically Garrett's only version of family, and I could see it in his eyes and in his actions that he did not want to kill the man, even though it's a mercy killing. The man was dying. He was ready to go, and he was asking for Garrett's help. You could see that he really struggled with it up until the point to where, he was basically like, please, help me. I don't want to suffer anymore. This is, these are my last breaths, and I don't want to suffer this way. Help me. Put me out of my misery, basically. And that's when he obliged.
Yeah, and the pain in his face, that kind of just, despite what the scene provided us, I was relieved to see him upset and struggling. Now that we've seen that he actually is like more of a softie than I had even imagined. Okay, if you don't have the guts to be a killer, then you're not a killer. He helped him, and he thankfully didn't get caught, because that looked bad. Like, I thought someone was going to come in, like I just said, and just like, oh, what the hell are you doing? But no one did, because he got lucky. It was unfortunate, but I do think he was just doing it to help him, and that was a big relief for me.
Me too.
So finally we are back at the jail. The news is on, and it appears Jen has made a shocking discovery in the SBK case, so she's on the news. She's not on the scene. She's like in a house. So she reads a statement. The police believe SBK had an accomplice. It was me. I would have stayed quiet, but they wouldn't stop digging. Continue to pursue me, and they will all be forgotten. We didn't hear the rest of the statement because the feed was cut off, and there was a figure dressed in black behind her. Jen screamed like, what, no, just before that video was cut off. So we then see she was killed on the spot. Sitting beside her was a silver bell. The SPK has struck again. Garrett's jail warden watched the report along with him and says, hey, I thought you were the killer. No, he's been framed. I've told you this for the past, ever. He was framed.
Dun. The man at the jail wasn't listening to our podcast.
No. We are taken back to that first flashback from 2002 where Madeline asked Garrett, what did you just do? So Garrett turns around and he looks frightened and he says, he tried to kill me. What were your final thoughts on the end of the episode?
I thought everything was beautifully done. I liked seeing everyone's reactions to what was happening. I thought that was very well done. I mean, poor Jen. I mean, she was poking her head where she wasn't supposed to, so unfortunately, she had to pay the ultimate price. I kind of feel bad for Allison, because I have a feeling that her connection to Jen is going to come out, and it's going to make her look hella suspicious.
Yeah.
So that's going to come back and bite her in the ass big time. Now, here's my thinking. Was that live per se, or did SBK's accomplice have that recorded and uploaded to air at that time? Because I'm saying that because with today's wonderful modern day technology, he could have, or she, whoever SBK's accomplice is, they could have recorded that earlier in the day, killed her earlier in the day, and then made it look as if it was happening in real time at the time of the report at 5 o'clock or something like that.
Yeah.
Because the reason I'm saying this is because there were a lot of people that we know looking at the report, looking shocked. Maybe they were watching what they had just done earlier that morning. So we won't know until later if that was a live feed or if it was recorded. But I just think that's something interesting to think about. Now, as far as the flashback, I think Mitch attacked him. Or maybe he caught Mitch killing one of his victims, and the in the process of it, and the victim attacked him, and maybe he had to defend himself or something like that, or I don't know.
That would make sense because that knife, he has that knife, and then maybe in a twist of events, he killed the victim because he was being attacked, but like that would look like Mitch and then he was the accomplice kind of thing, maybe.
Exactly. I feel like it was self-defense. So if he has killed someone in the past, then it was for self-defense. Like, I don't feel like he purposely went out and killed this person because, as he said, he was attacked.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. So, since we finished our recap, it's time to rate this episode. You may rate the episode on a scale of 1 to 10 silver bells. I'm gonna go with Poppy. How about you? What are you gonna rate this episode?
Oh, me? Yay, I get to go first. I'm going to rate this 9.5 silver bells. I thought it was a beautifully done episode. As I said in my initial reaction, I was not sure what they were going to do with this episode. I thought, maybe this is going to be boring. It's just going to be Garrett in the woods. But they made it really interesting. I love that he had a mentor out there in the woods, someone to show him the way. And all of the jail scenes were really interesting. I like that we saw every main character in some way, shape, or form, whether it was them visiting or chatting with Garrett or seeing what they're up to out in the outside world beyond the prison. So I thought it was a really strong episode. Lots of great reveals, lots of surprises, some really killer, see what I did there, twists and turns, especially at the end. And I was satisfied with the episode. I know that they're gearing up to like the final phase of the series. We only have 4 episodes left. So it makes sense that they are kicking things up a notch. And I'm here for it.
Me too. All right. I think that's the highest rating of this season thus far. I just want to point that out. I don't think we've ever even got close to a 9. Jess with her 7.3, point bells.
Yes. Well, Jess, you can join us next time and you can give it a 6 if you want.
So I will rate this 9 silver bells. I have to agree with you on like almost every front. Like it was beautifully shot, even like the cinematography. It reflects like beautiful scenery, and I like how they played out the flashbacks. Like they progressively got, like they did go back and forth a little bit when appropriate. And yeah, they gave a lot of twists and turns that I wasn't expecting, but like the writers are like a couple of steps ahead. There's so many characters in play here. Overall though, 9 silver bells was like, that was it for me. It was a really solid episode. Now on to my favorite part of the podcast, predictions. Who do you think the Silver Bells killer is, and who is the accomplice? All right, Poppy, you did a good job. I'll pick you first again.
Okay, sounds good. All right. So last week I had a bit of a fluke week where I didn't choose the person that I've been usually saying, and that's because there really wasn't any evidence against her last week, and so I couldn't just justify it by saying everything that she's done in the past makes it suspicious, or everything that appears suspicious in the past made it enough to nominate them last week. So unfortunately I did have to pick Garrett. Now after this week, after seeing everything including the flashbacks, I can't pick Garrett because I just can't justify anything with him. Now usually I pick Tessa, and I still feel like she is the accomplice. I feel like Mitch is SBK. After this episode, I kind of feel like Madeline is all clear from everything SBK related, not including the fact that she knows who SBK and the accomplice is. So what I'm going to use as evidence against Tessa is the fact that Garrett seems to be protecting her from everything SBK oriented. He made her think that he has killed someone, which made her think that he is the accomplice to SBK. He could have easily had said something to the gist of, yes, I have killed someone, but it was a mercy killing. This was when I was out in the forest and I had a friend, and they asked me to kill them. But did he do that? No. He led her to believe that he was the accomplice. And I still feel like she has some sort of psychological something or other where she has blocked out, she has repressed the memories of her involvement in all of the SBK killings. She's probably even replaced the memories with false memories, happier times. Maybe she thought that she was going to be that maybe she remembers, or she thinks that she remembers waking up that early morning on her birthday to go on a hot air balloon ride, but in reality, it was her father waking her up to take her for her first kill. So I feel like it's Tessa. I'm going back to Tessa. I had my little fluke last week because I just couldn't find anything to justify Tessa because it was a Tessa light episode last week. But this week I have to go back to her, and she just looked hella suspicious throughout the entire episode. Like, I just can't buy that she's Pollyanna innocent. I feel like now that she has given the picture to Brady, it's going to backfire, and at some point, maybe not in the next episode, probably in like the penultimate episode, we will see that someone recognizes someone on that picture, and they're not recognizing Garrett, they're recognizing Tessa.
Okay, I have to say this is going to be probably the only episode where I agree with you, because I had written down that the Silver Bells killer was Mitch and that the accomplice is Tessa, and I've never done that because I'm like Madeline heavy, and so that's crazy that we have the exact same like agreement on that.
Yeah, it'd be funny though, because I know right now Madeline, at least in this episode, looks innocent of everything now. It really looks like she has been a mother that's just trying to save her family from, sending one of them to jail and having this horrible brand associated with them. But it'd be funny if at the end of the series, if part of us both were right, because we basically are like the competing theories. Like, you've always been Madeline, I've always been Tessa. It'd be funny if it really was Madeline and Tessa teaming up. Like, yes. We could be 50-50 right.
I will look forward to that. Now I have to explain why I'm changing mine. And now up to this point I haven't been 100% Madeline. I did change a week because of what we've been shown.
Correct. Same here. I had my 1 week with Garrett.
So the reason I'm completely changing my mind this week is because of what we've been given, like you said. So from what I gather, like, everyone's like, oh yeah, Mitch. Like, we're mixed on Mitch at this point, but like this was like a clear, like, as day. Like, Mitch tried to kill Garrett or something. He did something back in 2002. Which may be why Garrett decided to leave Boston and go cabin hopping in Maine. I think that is the clear reason, even though we haven't been actually told that. I know that. Although Madeline does still have so much stacked against her, and I'm not saying I'm deeming her innocent for sure, because I know she has done some sketchy things as well. Like, I can't excuse her from anything at this point. She seemed like she was trying to hold what dignity the family does still have together, like, very, very little. Like, she's trying to, like, cover all her bases, which is still backfiring. She's just doing what she can as a mom, which I guess that's all we can expect of her at this point. Regardless of how demanding she acted yet again towards Garrett, like, don't say anything ever. Like, she was very angry about it. Like, she was very pointed, and I'm like, still, really? Like, you look good this week. Like, don't ruin this. And it was funny too. I
like that your reaction is good. Don't ruin this.
Yeah, well,
you're like coming off scot-free.
Yeah, well, just for one episode. And I was also gonna bring up that picture thing. I knew that, yeah, like, maybe they'll recognize Garrett, but like, maybe like it won't mean anything to him. And I think this is gonna come as a shock to Brady. He's gonna have his revelation and his reckoning very soon, because I do think they're gonna recognize Tessa instead.
I agree. It's that whole thing with the blood, because like, I think at that moment we were kind of a little bit suspicious about Cam, and then, his blood, wasn't a match.
And
so
Tessa
it's going to be like the same thing.
Messed up the DNA. Hi. Oh, I'm testing you. No, I think I'm just hiding myself because I know I'm guilty.
Subliminally. I still think that's, for some reason, she's suppressing the memory. So maybe. I feel like when she did that, it was like subconsciously, subliminally. Like, she didn't do it out of her own volition. She was doing it because in the back of her mind she's like, I'm a killer, so I need to hide this and all this kind of thing. I feel like it's either a split personality type of thing, or she's severely repressing these horrors.
I think it's both.
Could be.
But yeah, I also think so SPK has struck again, and if Mitch really is the killer, he's not doing it anymore. So I wonder if someone took his place as the killer after Madeline literally pulled the plug on him. Because, like, I don't know if Mitch is the killer, it's like, but who's been going in his place? It can't just be the accomplice, because we know that it's a team of 2. Like, that's been proven. So, like, who would have taken his place? So I feel like in the next 4 episodes, they'll announce that, okay, the killer has been dead for however many months it's been, or weeks since Madeline killed him. Which I don't know if that'll get out, but I hope it does. Because she seems guilty at that point, right? I was like, that's her all the time. But I wonder if it's going to come out the fact that it's literally like 3 or 4 people, because they've had to switch out roles because Mitch is dead and Allison's getting suspicious, or whoever it may be, or Tessa's like going to ruin this for us. I don't know. So I feel like maybe that would come out soon. Like, that's just something that we'll have to see. Only time will tell if that's going to be a thing. And with that, join us next time for a brand new installment of the Silver Bells Murders. Visit poppychuloradio.com/archives to download this episode and many more. Registered users will gain access to our archives of previously aired broadcasts. You can also download tonight's broadcast through iTunes. Just search for the Silver Bells Murders and subscribe. Please like Poppy Chulo Radio on Facebook by going to facebook.com/poppychuloradio. Follow the show on Tumblr, thesilverbellsmurders.tumblr.com. Help support Poppy Chulo Radio financially by visiting gofundme.com/poppychuloradio. Email us via contact@poppychuloradio.com with any questions, suggestions, comments, or concerns. Are you interested in joining the Poppy Chulo Radio team as an on-air personality or blog contributor? Email talent@poppychuloradio.com. Co-host, wish the listeners a good night.
Good night, listeners. SBK, we are on to you. And I know that Cutter might be out there giving information to the mayor, but Brady's on the case, and he's going to hunt you down.
Thanks for tuning in. Join us every Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Pacific for a brand new installment of the Silver Bells Murders. Good night.